wook+live.
Yo,
Nailed
what's
it.
up, guys?
Hey.
Llama, man, you fixed the intro.
Yeah, that was my subtle joke for the whole season.
Yeah, that's why you did it.
Yeah.
Although the whole end was a little messed up. No, hey man, you came through in the end. This is our last episode of this little mini season we have. But fear not, next week we'll be back with a Christmas special. That's now an annual tradition. It's gonna be a little different this year, but it'll be a lot of fun.
It's been a little different every year.
I know, man.
It's constantly evolving. It's evolving.
Oh, dude, it's fun. I'm actually excited about this one. I think.
Oh, it's gonna be fantastic.
Yeah, we kind of took it a little easy this season with the creative stuff. We were really focused on great guests, and we weren't doing as many bits and all that shit. But I think the Christmas special is going to be fun. You should definitely tune in. Other housekeeping, for the New Year's run for Fish, we're gonna be doing recaps after each show.
The Fish after show.
The Fish after show. So that'll be fun. So if you want to just be part of team chat and hang out and do whatever.
And Wook and I will both be sitting home because
fully coherent, not intoxicated at all.
15 minutes after the show, you know where to find us.
That's 100% a lie. Yeah, and so I hope you come and join us. Even if for a minute, let us know what you guys think. We'll share our thoughts. It'll be fun. It'll be like a little gathering, a little social thing. Also, this is cool. I was on a podcast recently, which I hadn't done in quite a while.
Podcast?
Yeah, Kev, I know you do that shit constantly. You can't get away from your mic. But no, I was interviewed by Stub Me Down, JW and Skinny over there.
A specific show or?
Yeah, we talked about dicks, man. About the lightning round, the rain show.
Oh, nice.
Revisiting that, I just got goosebumps, and maybe that's something we could talk about with Mark. Is the physical and emotional reactions you can get from music, and I don't know. I always find it interesting how musicians feel versus the audience, because sometimes you got that symbiotic thing going. I don't know. We'll talk to them.
Did you get to talk about leaving and how we totally blew leaving and coming back in since they didn't check anybody? We could have walked in with a tank of nitrous or something, and nobody would have stopped us.
Listen, I loved that everybody left and came back in, because the way I was describing it is when you go into a normal venue for a normal show, it's loosely packed at first, and then it grinds, it tightens, right? Each section, for general admission, gets more and more people. But then when everybody left and came in all at the same time, you were already with your groups, and you just went to a thing, and it was so much more relaxed. You know what I mean? Remember that? Because you guys were there. We were all together, but there was people intermittent. And then when we came back in,
I got to go to the car and change and put on warm clothes in that cold Colorado rain there. So
on poor Llama's tent pop-up.
Oh, yeah.
Gone. Sacrificed to the fish gods.
It happens. I'm excited about our guest tonight.
Yeah. Our guest is coming on. It's Mr. Mark Mullins. He's a trombonist out of New Orleans, and
you want me to bring him on?
Yeah, he's an old favorite of mine. Yeah, bring him in. I was going to say I was going to be gushy, but
you can gush. I just want to see his reaction to you gushing.
Yeah. So, Mark, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me in. How y'all doing?
Thanks for joining us. This is great to have you on.
Very nice. I like I said before, let's start off with, you just played a gig with Harry Connick Jr., who our friends out there probably don't know was your original, where I guess you got your foot in the door. You want to talk a little bit about the show and how
you're making a lot of assumptions. First, let's confirm it is Kev, right?
Somewhat. I mean, I started, I guess, right in high school playing with bands around town, cover bands. We had this band called Rum Boogie. Dave Ferrato, a good friend of mine, great guitar player and singer, and Kirk Steen. We put this band together, and I'm like right out of high school, and it's like a psychedelic horn band playing music that didn't have horns in it to begin with, like Hendrix stuff and Deep Purple and My Little Red Book, like all this crazy eclectic stuff. And suddenly, out of high school, I'm thrown into the position after the trumpet guy left to be the horn arranger for this band, and I'm like, this is really freaking great, My parents are like, what are you doing? You're supposed to be in college. I'm like, it's a school outside of school. Trust me, it's going to be cool.
Were you classically trained in theory, or did you kind of teach yourself?
No, well, a little of both, because I went to Loyola and studied music there. I was a jazz studies major, um, which you can walk pretty much nowhere with your degree and get a gig. That's just doesn't work. But I got a great education there. I loved it. I would do it again in a heartbeat. But at the same time, I was playing with Rum Boogie, and then so I was learning all this cool stuff about how horns can and can't interact in this kind of music, rock music. And I'm a big rock music fan. I was never a fan of the the jazz supremacy, if you will. I was turned off by that all the time.
We see that a lot in the jam band community too, which is primarily where we're based. Like the just hardcore jazz people look down at improvisational rock and roll in a lot of ways. It's terrible.
Right. I'm not so down with that. I'm totally down with mastering your instrument as best you can and treating that with the most respect, whatever music you're playing. Yeah. But it can be whatever music you're playing. And anyway, make a long story short, I learned a lot with Rum Boogie, and I'm learning more now. I'm realizing more now how much I actually learned at that time.
Do recordings exist?
On my cassettes, I got some cassettes 10 feet away from me that probably have a bunch of stuff, but learning what worked, what didn't work. And then I met George Porter Jr. Through a good friend, John Otan, connected me to him to do some horn arranging for him on his Rounder record in 1989. And I think the arrangements might have already been done. I might have been just transcribing at that point, but I quickly started doing some arranging for George and was playing in the Running Partners. And this is all before Harry. And so, again, a whole nother school, school of George Porter Jr. This is like 30 years ago.
And this was John. This band had John Grow in it. Was he in the band?
Not originally, but after a while, yeah. He came into it maybe a year later, I guess. I could be wrong.
Was Terrence Houston there, or
not at that time? But Terrence Higgins was, and before that, it was Russell Baptiste.
You love how Kev's subtly dropping names and being all.
I'm trying to think it through in my head. Russell Batiste is the man, the young lion.
Yes, sir. Well, he just had a birthday. He's like me. He's not as young anymore, but like all of us. But anyway, so then shortly after George, the day I graduated from college was actually the same day that I got the phone call from Harry's manager to be in the band. I already auditioned over the phone in my underwear, of all things, but it wasn't official until literally graduation day, and it was like so crazy, and then I'm 21, 22 years old, and I go on the road with Harry basically for 16 years.
Wow.
And then in 2006, Bonorama was about 8 years old at that point, and we were getting busier and busier, and it was apparent that it was time to go. And yes, man, I really need to focus on this band. Craig Klein and I both were in the same boat, because we put Bonorama together, and it's like we gotta focus on the band and do that. And so we did. And
Bonorama maybe picked up where your original band left off a little bit.
It kind of dovetailed, and in the middle there somewhere, even before Bonorama, I didn't mean to skip over Mulebone, but Mulebone is one of my favorite bands that nobody knows about or cares about. But I had so much fun working on that with some great musicians in that band, and it's more of a song-oriented rock band with just one horn up front.
Were you the primary arranger with Bonorama too? Did you continue that role, or is it more of a group effort?
It's somewhat of a group effort. I did a lot, but Matt Perrine did a lot of great songwriting and arrangements. Craig Klein, of course, did some as well, and we would all bring in different things, and we would all have a different process on how we would bring it to rehearsal and develop it a little bit.
You actually write out charts and stuff, like staff music, properly charted out.
Yeah.
That's cool.
With the flexibility of changing it, to make it better, or figuring out if there's something else that somebody in the room thinks is a better idea that can work in some way. I mean, everyone, you check your ego at the door to go into rehearsal.
Yeah,
that's
true collaboration.
101,
that's where the best stuff comes from.
It is.
Now, I kind of want to go back to one thing you said, because I find it interesting. I don't know if anybody else will, but like the music geek in me, you were talking about when you were arranging early on, like right out of high school or I guess in college, and what works with horns and what doesn't. And I'm curious, like if you had like one thing that you see the most, like the most common mistake with like horns out there, or the golden rule of arranging horns for rock, what would that be? Because as like a layman that's never actually written or played a horn, brass instrument, I've never even thought about that, but it makes perfect sense. Do you have like a go-to mistake that you see or a golden rule for it?
I mean, two things I look at right off the bat is don't overplay, because horn players, we're famous for
I
overplaying.
love to just blast.
Less is more. Like just shut the hell up, take the horn out of your mouth. All those quotes are valid, especially in rock and pop music. To me, don't step on the vocal like most of the time. Sometimes as the song gets going, you can get away with that. Like Alan, my favorite horn arranger is Alan Toussaint, and he's mostly known for his producing and songwriting, but he was just a genius dude. Was a genius dude on horn arranging, because he would create these songs within a song. And that's the other thing you can do. You want you're subconsciously keeping the listener engaged to a song. They might not know why, but like the second verse comes and there's something a little different dancing around back there.
Keeping
And then
it interesting.
the bridge comes and then maybe you're gone, or maybe you're in. Third verse, something totally different information floating around. And by that point, maybe it can be a little bit busier, but I love to stay out of the way at the beginning, like show up for the intro if you need to be. And first verse, let the singer sing his song, and respect for the vocal, try not to step on the vocal. That's
It's funny
that's
because
one
as you're
thing.
describing that, I think you could apply that same logic to a lot of people in the band. Like I drum, like I'm a drummer, and that's exactly the maturity. Yeah, exactly, Jason. The guy there, Jason, he wrote the theme song for us, and he writes a lot of music for us. He's a
Nice.
arranger, composer. But like I think as like a drummer, like as the more mature I've become as a musician, it's not about what I can do or how fast I can play. It's what I don't do. It's the decisions I make not to play is what makes you a better, more mature musician. And it sounds like that's a very similar mentality in the way you arrange.
Absolutely. Yeah, right on. It's like the space is very important, knowing when to
Dude, nothing
use
makes
it and
people
when not
more uncomfortable
necessarily.
than holding back and doing nothing.
Like
that silence is it's so powerful.
When your solo is going nowhere, and you just stop for a second, and like just, and then that'll bring, people will be doing this, they'll what's he gonna do next, and it's like it works every time, and it just makes sense to do that sometimes, just to get out the way.
So has all of this been primarily based out of Louisiana, out of New Orleans, or have you been moving around?
No, I mean, I grew up here. I grew up down here. I was born in New Jersey. Like nobody knows that. If anybody knows me, they're like, "Wow."
So funny because Low Faber we had on, he was born in Princeton, moved to Louisiana.
And he lives down there now.
Everyone I know from Jersey moved away. It's like I know everybody's from Jersey. They just don't stay there.
I did move away. I was 4 years old, so I can barely remember anything up there. Hardly anything, just a little bit. But we came down here. My mom was from New Jersey. My dad was from Mississippi, southern Mississippi, and he spent a lot of his teenage years and growing up years in New Orleans, back in like the 40s. And so he went into the Army, went to Jersey. They met, had 3 kids. I'm the youngest. And then my dad's like, "No, screw this. We're going back to Louisiana.
Can't stay up here. We got to go back down there."
And if he didn't, I don't know if I'd be playing music today. I don't even know. I don't know. I wonder.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So you were exposed at an early age. Were your parents fans of the New Orleans sound, or?
My dad was somewhat. He was a fan. He's a music fan. He's still with us, and he's going to be 94 in February, and he's probably listening right now. Yeah,
awesome. Welcome.
He's doing much better than he knows he is. But he was a big music fan. Still is. Had the record collection. And so me and my brothers would raid the record collection, and it would be anything from Louis Armstrong to Little Richard, you know, and the specialty recordings, like stuff that was recorded literally 8 miles from our house that I had no idea at that time that was recorded so close. I was like, oh, that had to be done in California or something as a kid, you know. And I learned later as I got older, no, man, that was a Cosmos studio, like right down the road. I'm like, that blew my mind. But no, he was a big music fan. He still is. And
I'm passing on the tradition to my 16-year-old. She raids my record collection all the time. So that's the best thing you can do as a parent. It is. I'm like, oh, you're taking the Bad Brains record? Really? You like Bad Brains?
I think my wife's winning the battle because I played Take 5 for Evie today. Evie's my daughter, and my wife played Lady Gaga, and Evie fucking loved Lady Gaga. I lost, so it's hard to get him to.
But Lady Gaga is a big show.
No, I know, and it's all the choreography and stuff.
And it has words.
But I'm like trying to. I was playing MMW. I don't know. It's too lofty goals. I gotta tune it down a little bit.
She's what, 3, 4?
4, yeah.
I got to play the Lady Gaga Tony Bennett show at Jazz Fest a few years ago, whenever that was. Man, was that probably 4 years ago? Maybe 5, maybe more. I don't know. Probably 4 or 5. And it was just, you know, I honestly going into it, I wasn't really all that hip on her catalog or anything. I just maybe had seen too many bad stories about her, you know, or too much of the negative press. And she came in and she blew us all away. I mean, she was like, she nailed that style. And this is like, and I'm a kind of a snob on that style, you know, because of Harry, you know, and I have a lot of so much ultimate max respect for Harry and how he approaches that style. And I tell you, I couldn't believe she was just amazing. She killed it. She totally killed it.
Definitely a phenomenal artist, and I stood no chance against that. I don't even know what I was thinking.
And Tony Bennett, I mean, he's, I guess, a consummate professional. Huh.
I couldn't, you know, we kept looking up his age at the time because, like, how is this person doing this at this age? He sounds just like he did. Fantastic. He sounds just as good as ever.
The list of people that you've played with is astonishing. It's just like so many. It really is. Like it's a phenomenal list of acts. Kev, you have that list up?
Yeah.
I just want to do some name dropping, like some braggadociousness. Because
Bruce Springsteen. We got Bruce Springsteen, Keith Richards, Sheryl Crow, Greg Allman, Peter Frampton, Fogerty, Michael McDonald, Dr. John, Skinner, Mavis Staples.
Are we allowed to ask who your best experience was, or who out of that was the biggest deal to you?
You can.
Usually artists don't like when we go there, but I feel like it's the juicy stuff you want to know.
God, I mean, they're all cool in such a different way. And first of all, just about all of those were through my connection with Blackbird, who does these Last Waltz tribute shows, tours that we just got off of with Warren Haynes.
They did the Dear Jerry. They did the Dear Jerry thing.
Yes,
at Merriweather. Yes,
they did. They do a bunch of stuff. Keith does Outlaw, and you know, great stuff, great people, and I've learned so much by being under that umbrella too. So I've had the chance to do that mostly through them.
And Don Was works with him quite a bit too, right?
Quite a bit. Yeah, and we just got off the road with the Last Waltz tour with Don and Warren and Jamie. We can talk more about that, but I don't want to miss your question.
We got plenty of time. Yeah, keep us on pace because we're a bunch of wooks.
Keep us on track. We diverge.
Man, I tell you, I think the Bruce Springsteen thing was. I mean, God, they're all exciting in different ways. Because like Peter Frampton, we all grew up listening.
Do you feel like
that album? You know, that was mailed direct to every household in America, as my brother would say. You know, like everybody 100%. Knew that album. Everybody had it. You knew what the cover looked like. You can picture the cover. You know, it was on constantly. And there he is, just Peter Frampton. Nice, super nice guy. Like that's the thing with all these people. There's no assholes in this group. I mean, like all these people on that level are like. To me, I don't know, at least from where I'm standing, they come off super genuine, super humble, and just nice people.
Listen, that's awesome for humanity, and like I'm really happy to hear that these famous rich artists are like nice people. But part of me was kind of hoping you'd come out and be like, Crow is a total bitch. Like,
I tell you what, I've always been not wanting to meet people, not wanting to meet artists that I like because I'm afraid of what if they had a bad night. and they blow me off, and then I'm like, fuck that guy, I'm never going to see him again.
The Springsteen thing was special, though, I got to say, because this was at the first Blackbird thing that I did was the Mojo of Dr. John at Jazz Fest in 2014 in New Orleans at the Sanger, and there was guests involved left and right, but Bruce was not mentioned, but he was playing Jazz Fest. And the day of the show, I walk in, I see John Grow. This is Mulebone's done. We had not been playing, but John was in the band, in the house band. And he's like, you're never going to guess who's going to be here tonight opening the show. And I said, I'm not going to guess. He goes, Bruce Springsteen. I said, you got to be kidding me. I said, you got to be joking. You know, Jersey boy, you know, my older brothers, well, Eric especially, Bruce fan out the wazoo, you know, and he that's another influence. My brothers would bring in music, especially Eric would bring in a lot of music into the house that I was not exposed to, that I still love today, you know.
I feel like having older siblings expands your reach in such a huge way, because, like, you know, your parents, but there's a generational division, right? Whether, like, if you're Gen X and they're like silent, you know what I mean? But like, you're having a brother that's a few years older, it just expands that reach and exposes you to so much more that otherwise you'd miss.
It's true. It's
my brother
very,
got
very
me
true.
into music and is like 100% the reason I do this. I listen to what I listen to. I play what I play. I would attribute it probably 90 to 100% to my brother. And I can see, like, I know what you mean. Siblings is a huge part of it.
Yeah. So we had every Bruce record in the house, you know, and the first two are just clearly epic. I mean, they're all great, but man, E Street Shuffle and the Asbury Park, Greetings from Asbury. Oh,
Rosalita.
God. I could recite it backwards to you at this point. So to know Bruce was coming in a matter of hours to rehearse with us completely blew my mind. And I'm not too easily starstruck, but I was starstruck. I was losing my mind. I was like, this is cool as hell.
So did you play Bruce songs?
We did one song. He did one song. And
did you have an arrangement for it already, or was it something you guys had to figure out on the spot?
It was something we had done. He did Right Place, Wrong Time by Dr. John to open the show. Sanger curtain goes up unannounced. No mention of Bruce on the show at all.
So cool.
Ladies and gentlemen, you know,
Bruce Springsteen.
I mean,
and Dr.
It's on YouTube somewhere.
Right, Dr. John's biggest hit too, which is great that they open with it instead of it being the encore, which you might figure it would be, you know, to come out with it. That's fantastic. Yeah,
I was in the dressing room with John, like before we rehearsed it. Just 2 hours before the show, probably, and Don was sitting behind John and I at one side of the dressing room, and then nobody else was really in the dressing room. And some guy sticks his head in and looks, and I look up and I do a double take, and I was like, "Oh, it's Bruce!" And Bruce just kind of gives me the nod. He walks in straight to Don, and they sit behind me and John, and they rehearse the song right there. You know, they talk it down, they rehearse it, and spent maybe just a few minutes on it. Bruce just got some phrasing stuff together, maybe, from what I could tell, and then we went out and he just nailed it. I mean, he nailed it. He sounded great.
Hey, that's amazing.
And this is coming after he just played Jazz Fest. He did like a 2 or 3 hour set at Jazz Fest, like, you know,
legendary shows.
He's not 25 anymore, and here he's coming over to the Sanger to do this with us, and everybody's mind was blown. It was such a great experience.
It's really cool of him. I know, like, bringing it to my world with, sorry, but I saw him in Bonnaroo with Fish, and he came out and played with them, but I always had like a bad taste because they won't let it be released. I don't know what the story is, but he won't let it be released on like Fish's website or streaming service, so I can't go back and listen to it. And the rumor is that it's Bruce, that he doesn't, he's very controlling over his music and stuff, which I guess I can respect from like an artist standpoint, but like, I don't know, it just made me feel weird. So it's cool to hear that he was so like,
I always found it fascinating that Bruce, that they didn't record every show in like 75, 76, 77. There are very few tapes that exist, and a lot of them are people in the audience recorded it. It just blows my mind that they didn't think
I don't
we
think
should
that was
preserve
as
this.
much of a thing though.
I
Back
know.
then.
I don't get that. It's $1 million business now. Really, like Bob Dylan can release.
Yeah, but you
Eating
don't
Beans
get
and
how
Farting
people
and-
weren't 30 years ahead of the curve. I mean, there's a reason it's a curve.
Maybe it was focused on, I mean, I'm just guessing, but I'm speculating. Back then there was so much, it was so much about making the great record, making the album, and making the album sound great, and that being the definitive statement. I'm just guessing that maybe they didn't, and I had this inside of me a little bit too. Like I've been like this, and like I want the album to speak for those songs, not so much a gig we did when we might have been tired or not sounding our best, or and then that gets out there. I don't know. I think it might have had something to do with that. That's just my take on it.
I've always felt that a lot of jam bands' biggest downfall is they don't use the studio to create the artifact, the definitive version of something. They do it as a sketch that they're going to go jam on when they play. And I think a lot of them are missing the chance to do something fantastic with it.
Yeah, it's a different mindset. Well, now it's weird because you could do like your home studio with technology. You don't even have to be in the same state, but like the classic sense of a studio, like going to a studio, getting together, mastering it, hitting in the right mindset and doing the right take. Mark Karen was on a couple weeks ago and he was talking about how a lot of people like inappropriate or mistakenly think the Grateful Dead aren't good musicians because they have so much slop out there. But the fact is that they played so much and got recorded so much, and they took so many chances and risks that of course you're going to have that. But in reality, they're all phenomenal musicians. They just were not too proud to put it out there. And it's almost like what we're talking about with Bruce. It's like the opposite. It was like wanting to control it and not let people see the ugly side of the creativity.
And as a consumer, for me, the fun is finding the gems, is wading through a lot of the crap and being like, wow, this was the moment where they all were in the same place, one mind playing.
Yeah. Archive.org, right?
Yes, I love archive.org.
I mean,
so fantastic. So do we want to check out a little bit of Bonorama and then come back and maybe we could talk about The Last Waltz, because I really would like to hear about that.
Yeah, and I also want to talk about the Zeppelin stuff because
why don't we talk about the Zeppelin after this, since this is Bonorama from 2017.
I got it, Llama. All right, let's play it. That's awesome.
Who's that kid with the long hair? He needs a haircut up front, that little guy.
Well, before we get into the Zeppelin choice, let me ask you, you keep reaching down. Do you have pedals? You like a guitar player down there?
I do. I can't quite. Well, they're over there. Yeah, it's way more than I need. It's way more than I need. Guitar players laugh at me when I open the pedal board. They see the pedal board. It's just huge. And they just laugh. They say, "What are you going to do with that?" And
it's all going through your mic, is going through all the different pedals. Well, go walk us through your setup. We do this every time we have an artist on. We have guitar, bass, drummer. They go through our setup.
It's based on basically a wah-wah pedal and a harmonizer. And so you'll hear, like in that last track, there was like an octave thing going on. So I have just an octaver, very simple. And then there's another harmonizer setting I use that's like it's kind of like a open tuning guitar kind of sound, like a 50 kind of thing. And that's kind of cool. It's really kind of cool. It's fun, because it's like playing a different instrument. You kick that thing on, and suddenly you're hearing guitar vocabulary in your head, because that's the sound that's coming back at you through the amp. And I have these amps behind me, these are a few of my amps, and so
Do you play guitar as well, or
not in front of any human being at all, but very little. I use it as a songwriting device sometimes.
But you're coming at it very much strictly from the trombone and brass point of view, right? Like you're not like translating what you would do on guitar to trombone. You're interpreting it as a trombone player, I guess.
Well, no, I mean, I'm thinking of guitar language a little bit. I'm thinking of guitar riffs or guitar bends and things. And there's a lot of things the trombone can do that are similar to the guitar. I mean, trombone is obviously a fretless instrument, but there's a lot of bending that you can do, bending of strings. And there's a lot of relationship in my mind to the string series and the overtone series of the trombone.
Like your positions
and notes that would come out as you stay in one position.
Right.
Like one fret going up.
And did Zeppelin naturally fit into that?
To me, because a lot of those riffs just fall into place very well for me on the trombone. And again, I'm this guy, I would be playing the Bruce Springsteen records in my house when I was 9 or 10 years old, trying to match the inflection of the vocal and trying to match the inflections of Clarence Clemens or any solo that moved me. Same with Zeppelin. And so I've been kind of on this for a while. It's been a big deal to me for a while, and it's kind of what makes me tick a little bit. I really enjoy playing that kind of music.
Yeah, that's awesome. It works really. I almost feel too like the stuff, how open and big like Bonham played, and like the magnitude of the music works well. Like I don't know the proper term for this, but like something that was like gentle or like really subtle and light musically. I don't know if like a bunch of trombones on stage could really like, you know what I mean? But like Zeppelin's big, it hits you. It's like it's bombastic.
Bombastic is the word I was going to say too. That's
and it works well with the trombones. It's a perfect marriage. I feel like.
What are some of the other people? Sabbath. I believe you did some Sabbath.
We do War Pigs. Matt Perron brought that in, and that's probably the most requested, I think. But like, it's a fine line, because we'll do that. We'll do the first one we did was Frankenstein by Edgar Winter, instrumental, and that's just a perfect match, and like it just works. It just works, and we open it up for big solo in the middle and a big jam section. It's just fun. It's fun to do that stuff. It's fun to do that stuff when you're mixing it in with other types of music, and that's, I think, with Bonorama, that's what might make people kind of freak out a little bit is the fact that we just played a Fats Domino song and maybe 2 originals that they've never heard before, but that they were moving to, which is great. And then all of a sudden we're giving them Paranoid Android by Radiohead or Black Sabbath or something, or Zeppelin, but it's fun that's the fun stuff, is when you can throw it all together and mix it up and have some fun with people, because they don't see it coming, they're like, oh wow, this is cool.
Yeah, I can imagine you could have a lot of fun playing with the audience, or like quote unquote like trolling with the audience and doing, you know what I mean? Like your set list creation, I imagine, is a lot of fun.
Yes. I'm all about it. Yeah.
Llama, you got something?
I just wanted to know what your opinion was on 1990s third wave ska. That's that's where I recognize the trombone from mostly.
Yes. I'm more ignorant on that than I should be. That's my honest answer, is that I don't know enough about it as I should, as a trombonist especially, but as a music fan first. What are some of your favorite bands? Like, if I could reverse it back to you.
Yeah, let's do that.
Oh man, Mustard Plug was a good one. Mighty Mighty Boss Tones was a big one.
Of course.
Yeah. Voodoo Glow Skulls was another one that was pretty good.
I had no idea you had a ska side, Llama. This is very enlightening.
Like ska was really big in the 90s, at least,
Oh, I remember. I just didn't realize that you had a whole ska thing.
I was like 13. Ska music is made for 13-year-olds. Yeah.
Yeah. I was in the grunge land over there. I was doing grungy stuff, but yeah. I just think it was an interesting, because like listening to that clip of
it's such a different dynamic between the two.
To me, though, most music or most pop music that has, or not pop music, but most any other music that has trombones in it is something I might not necessarily want to follow. I don't mean to say it derogatory like the jazz supremacist, but I like guitar-oriented music, guitar-based music, and rock kind of stuff. That's just kind of where my head is. But,
is there a logic behind that though, or is it just a taste thing? Like, and I'm not judging because I completely understand it, but I'm just curious.
I think
is
it's
it like you
taste
listen
thing,
to a lot of trombone like professionally, so it's like when you're doing it leisurely, you don't want it, or
maybe the trombone stuff that I do like to listen to is jazz oriented, whether it's J.J. Johnson or Curtis Fuller, Carl Fontana, like the masters that do that stuff. Otherwise, I'm not as moved by it necessarily. I'd rather just find music that moves me, no matter what the instrumentation is, and follow that. And I've kind of always been about that a bit. With the exception of Chicago. I'm a huge Chicago fan ever since I was a little kid.
Terry Kath.
Terry
Kath is just.
Have you seen those Tanglewood videos on YouTube?
Oh my God. That's the greatest thing ever. I made my kids watch it. They were like, really, Dad? I'm like, this is so fantastic.
And they're all crammed on this tiny stage, like just completely shredding. Like epic. Yes. I got to meet Jimmy Pankow. I got to meet him about 25 years ago or so. And had dinner with him, got to talk to him, and again, nicest guy in the world. And like, just as far as a trombone perspective in a popular setting, the guy changed the game. He completely changed the game. And you can not be a fan of some of the more ballad oriented stuff, or maybe some of the more recent stuff, whatever, but you can't deny that some of those early records and the musicality that's on it. It's
the first, they had 7 records in the top 100. Their first 7 records were all in the top 100 at one point in the early 70s. I mean,
it's incredible,
mind blowing.
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead. Go ahead. All right, I wanted to bring up the Radiators.
I let you go. I had an opportunity to stop you. I didn't know you're going to the Rads.
you talk about
this is the Rad section.
Does this get ugly or something with the?
He's a huge Radiators fan, and
we have a whole drinking game.
I am too.
It became a joke that anytime I mentioned it, everyone had to drink at one point. So, but you talk about, things being scripted, writing out charts and stuff like that. When you played with the Radiators, it wasn't like that. Did you knew the songs and you went in and just found your place?
Pretty much. We did a couple of different configurations with horns. When Dave first called, I want to say 2003 or something like that, he called me, he wanted me and Tim Green, rest in peace, and Brian O'Neill, rest in peace, to be the horns. And we did at Jazz Fest. And that was kind of scripted.
You were the Fishhead horns, right?
Yeah. That was kind of scripted. We had a real loose rehearsal at Ed's house and worked up some ideas really quickly, and it was kind of loose charts, at that point. But then I did some solo stuff, I guess, by myself with the Rads later on, and that was totally unscripted, sort of based on some of the same riffs, but no, pretty much off the page.
It was fantastic. You ended up with them on that Earth Against the Radiators DVD thing.
Yeah.
And Tips. Which had Greg Allman. That had all kinds of people in it.
It did. Yeah, Greg Allman. Carl Denson was playing sax.
Wait, so how many people were you playing with horns wise? Was it a whole horn section brought in with the Radiators?
It was at times it was 3 horns. One time it was maybe 2 horns, and then other times it was just me. So
I wonder this because I've seen like bands with horn sections, how the improvisation works when you have multiple horns, because you almost have to be arranged or orchestrated, right?
That's why I'm a big fan of the arrangement, is because I mean some horn sections can do it very, very well. I will not lie. I mean, they can really pull off getting some stuff together precisely and make it look good without any charts, on a gig. And that's cool. That's just not, I've just seen better results the way I do it. Like if I can have some kind of structure or format to it, because to me, it's like getting your 3 or 4 fingers to play together at the
Right.
same time. And if you want to create something that's meaningful to the song, depends on what kind of song it is, but I just think the structure of an arrangement can be really valuable.
The Trey Anastasia band, he has a sax, trumpet, and trombone, and they've mastered the improv thing. But the trombonist
Right,
has
but
been
I
with
feel
them
like
for
there's
20
a little
years.
more written to it, though.
It is,
It's a
but they're
structured jam. It's almost like jazz improv versus like
16 bars to go
freeform
free.
psychedelic
Right.
jam band,
Yeah.
improv.
Yeah. I mean, we can all do the collective improvisation thing. That's kind of like that's granted, you got to be able to do that,
Yeah.
But like to come up with significant, meaningful parts that really relate well to the song without an arrangement, I really respect the guys that can do it without a chart, because that's and you got to get 3 or 4 like-minded musicians, that can do that equally to be able to pull that off. A lot of times I like to go for players that are more precision. Like I just want to know, like for example, in the last waltz horns, the Levy horns that I do, I want to know Bobby Campo is going to hit that high D, a high E every night perfectly the way it's written, and he does. He does it. He's just like a precision guy, and that's what the audience kind of wants to hear in those songs, and that's what the band wants to hear.
You
but
want to
there's
hear
times we get off the page too.
Does your range fluctuate? Or I guess because that's an interesting part about wind instruments too. It's like a guitar. It's like you hit a certain fret and hit it, you're gonna hit a certain note. But like, does your range fluctuate? Or like with trumpets, based on like your night or how warmed up or your chops or anything?
It can. I mean, you generally know where your territories, where you're good
right. You
at,
don't go outside of your comfort zone. You're like, I'm good in this range, I'm hitting here.
You pretty much know. But like, I tell you one thing: if I get fever sores a lot, right? So like, they just show up, and it's like, well, this sucks, and you got to put a piece of metal to your face and kind of press and blow air through it. It doesn't feel that great, and so that you never want to make excuses, but that can kind of limit.
That's a pretty legit fucking excuse, though. I mean,
then another thing is when we go up into the mountains, man. We like in Telluride or snow, Aspen. That's your air. Your air is like your fuel, and it gets pretty hard. It's probably the same for singers too, I'm sure. It's not just horn players or wind players, but
I feel like you got to put a lot more air out though, and have a lot more control of your air though. I don't know.
That shows up big time with me out there, especially when you get over 7,000 feet.
I bet, man. Not just breathing and existing as a person up there. It's hard, let alone performing and blowing air through a horn.
So how many years have they done the last waltz?
Started, I think, in 2016. We did Jazz Fest at the Sanger, and and then it went on tour the next year, and the lineup has changed from time to time. It's kind of been a little bit different every time that we do it. We had Michael McDonald involved at first, but it's always been Don Was and Warren Haynes and Jamie Johnson are the consistents. They're always there, with the exception of this last Jazz Fest when Warren fell down in Costa Rica, I think, on a trip, and he fractured his scapula or something, and
he wasn't playing.
No, but
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh at the Warren Haynes falling. I just love Kev's attentiveness. He's like, "Oh yeah, oh man, it's so funny." You can tell you're holding back the fanboy, Kev. You're like, "Oh yeah."
Who did you? Who played in place?
What's that?
Who played in place of him?
Larry Campbell. Yeah, and his wife, and we had Grace Potter came in. And had a much different lineup, much different. It was great. It was very, very, very cool.
I'm gonna. Can I? I'm sorry. Keep going.
No.
I was about to pivot, and I realized after I started speaking, it was probably an inappropriate time to pivot because you probably had something really brilliant to share with the audience. And I was just like, nope, fuck it, we're going in a different direction.
Only other thing I'll say is something that you hit on earlier is about the relationship of the audience to the band, and about how different. How did you put it? You were wondering how different emotion, how emotionally, what is it like from band to band? Maybe if I heard you right. Or
yeah, well, and how you experience the music as a musician, and the moment live and the interaction, if it's symbiotic or if the audience is very much different than the people on stage.
Well, I'll say two things, and the first is that, like with Bonorama, for example, whenever, and I don't know how this works, but it always works, and I say this a lot in interviews. But whenever we get off of the arrangement and we start doing something collective, and take that risk and take that leap of faith, and like we're all jumping off the mountain together, I don't know how the audience knows, but they know, and then they get drawn in. Just like when that soloist stopped playing for 8 seconds, the audience does this. And I don't know how that works, but it's a testament to the relationship between the band and the audience when we can do that, and when we feel that they are drawn in. It's a great feeling, and then we're all in it together. And so, okay, if we fall on our face, which sometimes we do,
it's ego death. It's like the audience and the band have ego death, and that's one of the most beautiful moments you can ever have at a concert.
And then the other side of it, though, is talking about what is it like to play some music, and every band, it's a different emotion, it's a different feeling, different character, different set of feelings. But to me, I gotta say, there's nothing like playing these songs of the band with the Last Waltz band that we just got off the tour with Warren, and it starts with Warren and Don and Jamie, but it transcends through the whole band to the audience and back. Feel it every song, every night. It's absolutely off the charts, and it's just the most special thing I've ever gotten to do, and I love it.
And
I
this year you had who? You had Cyril Neville maybe there.
We did.
Dave Malone. And
Dave was there. Yeah.
Who was the other guitar player?
Andrews Osborne.
Oh, Anders was there. Right.
Love him. We had Kathleen Edwards also, which I wasn't too familiar with Kathleen's work, and she just slayed it. She just killed it. She's got this just beautiful crystal clear voice, effortless range up there. And
did she do It Makes No Difference?
Warren does that.
Warren does make some difference.
I'm a big fan of how he does it. But Kathleen did Forever Young and some other ones. But Forever Young, she would bring the house down every night, and it was spectacular. It's just to stand up there with these people and like missing my entrances because I'm just listening to everything that they're doing,
So some of the other ones, the Mavis Staple, was that for Pops or was that for her?
That was another Blackbird tribute show. Was for her 75th birthday. Did it in Chicago at the Auditorium Theater. I want to say, I think that was the same year as the Leonard Skinner thing. In fact, it might have only been a week or two apart, if I remember right.
Wow. That's two sides of a coin.
That was 2014 also, late 2014.
That's two sides of a coin there, having Skinner 1 week and then Mavis Staples.
You know it. It was killer.
That's amazing. It's when you're talking about being on stage with these amazing artists, it's like you have to pinch yourself to like focus, because you're talking about like missing cues, and that would be me 100%. It's like these aren't like nobody.
That guitar solo.
Like honestly, these like, all right, let's not overstate it, but I'm going to a little bit. Like these are musicians that are in like the 0.001 percentile of their craft. Like we're not talking about like you're in some college band or some high, you know what I mean? Like you're with the masters, the master class, and you're on stage playing with them. I don't know. Like, I feel like that's a testament just to be able to stay focused and hit your part and stay professional and cool and chill when you're, because the list we've gone through and everyone you're talking about, it's just incredible. It must be like a really challenge. I don't know.
It's, again, it starts with like, if Warren is there, whoever's leading it, Warren or Don, like it starts with that. And their vibe is so great and so relaxing and so comfortable. And it's clearly, unspokenly, all about the music. It's not, it doesn't have to be, nothing much has to be said. It's just all about the music. The sound check for these things is epic because it'll be like this parade of stars going by every 5 minutes on the stage. And you run it and you just turn the page and you're like, okay, here's the new chart. Let's, there's, who knows, Peter Frampton or whatever, who just the next, and it's humbling and it's inspiring and it's just great to see. It's great to see all their attitudes not be the big attitudes that you think they're going to be. They want it right. It's got to be right.
I wonder if
But
that's because you're a musician too, though. Like, not that I don't believe these guys are genuinely nice people, but like, I wonder if, and I get it too, because like random ass fans that are like intruding on like their private life. I'm not saying that's a good thing or anything, but like, you're a professional, you're a musician, you're speaking the same language, so I feel like you're coming in on a level that like everybody's on the same page. I don't know if like the general public gets the same experience with them as like you would.
I think
You
they
know,
do. Most
maybe.
people I've ever met in bands.
I don't know
have
why I'm
been-
such a cynic. I'm just so
you are
like,
being a total
I'm hell
cynic.
bent on them being
Here,
assholes, and they're all one nice people.
Let's
I
let
got some
Llama.
stories, but not gonna
Let's
go
let
into
Llama save you.
Oh no, it's fine. Llama, save me.
All right. I just I wanted to know, like, you watch and you play with all these masterclass musicians. Like, what's been some of the like the biggest aha takeaway things that you've seen, like watching them do? You're like, oh, if I approach it like this, it changes my dynamic.
I think one thing is keeping the vibe comfortable in rehearsals, and Don Was is a master at this. He says very, very little, but he gets the results that need to be gotten, if that makes sense. He gets the results without having to say hardly anything, and it's like magic. But it just starts with just not being an asshole, you know, like just being like just
It's great
we're here
advice.
to work on this music, and like why do you need to? You don't need to be like that, you know.
The best advice I can give you is don't be an asshole.
I mean,
It's transcendent. Honestly, that's the evergreen advice for anything.
I mean, that's
Be an
one thing,
asshole.
but then there's other moments when you see a soloist or a singer just get into their moment, and you're like, oh my god, this is like a famous person that I've listened to a lot, and they're
right there
doing their at the top of their game right at that moment, and that's how they do it. And it's sort of like something you can't even put into words. You're just like, I saw him do it. I sort of know how I got a vibe of how he did it, but I can't like explain it to anybody.
Right.
You know, like it's like they just to watch them all do their magic right there is priceless. It's really a great experience.
Yeah, I could only imagine. Like, that's just wow.
Llama, I appreciate you coming in with your questions, by the way.
I had a follow-up.
Holy
Nice,
shit, we're gonna get 3
nice.
llama questions tonight.
And this is
I feel like we
only-
did a fanfare.
And this is only if like you feel comfortable answering, you know. But like,
Love when you start a question with that.
Yeah.
What can
Nobody
go
can
wrong?
promise
have you
that.
had any like serious miscues that a band member has had to save you because you were distracted or because it was just, you know, happens?
Oh yeah.
You know, that like even they were kind of funny, I guess.
You mean like Mullins? Whoa, hold up, or like that kind of thing?
Miss your cue because
Or
Oh,
you
yeah.
didn't come in, or you came in
Right,
too early,
yeah.
or just
yeah.
did something completely out of.
Oh yeah, all the time, and you just can't let anyone know that you did it. You can't, you know, because the people that
I meant to do that.
the people on the stage will know, they'll know, you know, like, but like other than that, no reason to give it away, no reason to talk about it to your neighbor at that point.
The best
It's done.
part.
You just got to keep going.
The
Happens all
best
the
part
time.
about creative improvisational music or music in general is if you do something wrong, you just do it again, and then it was right, and you meant to do it the whole time.
Yeah.
That's all you have to do. It's like, yep, I meant to do this. I owned it. It's mine.
It's not.
All
It's not about the mistake. It's not about the bad note. It's about what you play or do after. Somebody said that. I don't know. Miles.
Yep.
Somebody
Miles,
did. I'm gonna take a pivot now that I was gonna take before, and after I do this, you're all gonna be like, "Why the fuck did you do this?" Because it might be somber, but it's just something I've always wanted to ask New Orleans like musician. Have you? I'm curious about the procedures and etiquette behind second lines and the whole idea of like the parade. Have you? I imagine you have, but have you ever participated in a second line? How often does that happen? First, to start, have you participated in one?
Yeah, no, I mean they can happen at any time. I participated in them. And are you talking about the jazz funeral? Or
Yeah.
you're talking,
Yeah,
you're
the jazz
talking about,
funeral, yeah.
I mean, I don't do a lot of them, but I've done them, and they're very special. I mean, there's like you realize at that moment when you're in one of those that there's no other place you can possibly be but New Orleans, Louisiana, when that happens. And it's our thing here. It's a special, special thing. And it's about celebrating life after somebody's passed. You mourn for a minute, but then this person wants you to throw down at their funeral. You know, you don't, you know, you're not going to go home crying. You're going to be having a party.
Dancing, not right in the street.
And it's kind of just how we roll down here. it's
I was
one of those things very special.
I've seen them before down there, and I never had the bravery to hop in and walk behind one.
Is it an open invitation though? Is that how it goes, or is it like an arranged thing? Do they like call?
It's
like
somewhat
a core
arranged.
group.
It's somewhat arranged, but as people are on the street, you just fall in and you go, and you're in it. And it's not always a funeral. You know, it's sometimes it's just a second line on a Sunday afternoon, Saturday afternoon, or
through the fairgrounds at Jazz Fest. Like Rebirth will walk through, and they'll get a huge train of people following them through the crowd.
That's the spirit. You just fall into it and you go. And I don't think that happens anywhere else. I mean, that's kind of our deal down here.
It's really amazing. I mean, it's one of those ritual type things that is like I feel like you see that like with like in African cultures and like other cultures, but like for me seeing it in New Orleans with the jazz influence, and it's such a special musical experience. Does that influence, do you think, the way you play? I guess the location has to, but
somewhat, yeah.
Well, the second line, that song they call the second line, I mean, that's the New Orleans beat, which ultimately is different than everywhere else, right?
It is, but definitely that style of playing, you know, just this open air, just hard on your horn kind of thing. I mean, we do that in Bonorama a lot. That's like it's just an energy thing too. It's a spiritual thing. It's an energy thing, and it's a big part of the New Orleans horn sound for sure. Absolutely. Have y'all ever seen Rebirth or any other brass bands in New Orleans?
I actually had a D8 and a pair of stealth mics, and at 4 a.m. on a Tuesday night at Jazz Fest, I went and taped them at the Maple Leaf, standing on one of those little benches on the side, and I got a really good recording of them doing that.
It's just nothing like standing in front of that sound. Or in my case, standing behind it. It's pretty awesome too. But it's nothing like that. You know, it's a great impact.
Yeah. Rebirth is so fantastic. So fantastic.
What's up, Llama?
Hi. I was just gonna say I've seen Preservation Hall Jazz Band, which is another great New Orleans jazz band.
Definitely. Taylor Swift was just at Preservation Hall this weekend, like unannounced. She just went in, caught the show, I think, with her boyfriend who was finishing a movie here, if I read it correctly. And nobody bothered her or anything. That's the other thing about New Orleans, you know. It's like you know, all these celebrities will be hanging out here, and everyone's like, they either don't know or they don't care. You know, they're just like, whatever. You know,
let them live their life.
That's cool though.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So as Bonorama, what's your deal with the end of the year next spring? Do you got anything you want to pitch? You want to sell?
Right now, we're just coming off of like a 6-month hiatus, and we're going to be back in it this is going to be our 25th year in this year coming up. I know, right? 25th year of Bonorama. Like, you can handle another year of Bonorama, but you're gonna have to. So we'll be out and about in the spring. Keep an eye out. Got some things on the books that haven't been announced that I can't announce yet. But we'll be around. You know, like festival season is coming up in New Orleans and elsewhere. So just stay tuned.
Jazz Fest is coming up quick. Next year I'm going back.
We'll make
French
sure
Quarter Fest is coming up, and we've got festivals all year long in Louisiana, so we'll be around. But if anyone's in New Orleans, I'm going to be at Zony Mash on Friday with a great bunch of musicians around me. Terrence Higgins, who played in Lost Waltz, on drums, and Cass Faulkner on bass, Mike Lemler on keys from George Porter's band, and Chris Atkins on guitar from George Porter Jr.'s band also.
And George Porter might show up, huh?
He did last time at Zony Mash, but I don't know. He's probably out of town or something. Who knows? I don't
He's
know.
got that big 75th birthday thing coming up.
I'm going to be there for that too, which I'm super excited about. It's the day after my birthday. My birthday's on
nice.
Christmas. I'm a Christmas baby. 2 gifts, please.
Awesome.
And never. And, but George is going to be 75 years
wow.
old. Yep.
Well, happy early birthday.
I know, isn't that so great? Oh, for me too. Well,
No, yeah, for you.
Yes,
well,
for
for
both
both.
of you,
Hey, I think we're gonna call it. I appreciate you coming on and speaking with us. If you want to hang out for a minute after the credits, but
we can debrief you.
yeah, well, the after party. No, no, and then listen, guys, I appreciate you watching out there. Like and subscribe. We really appreciate all the support you guys give the channel.
We'll
Come
be back in
next week.
February.
No, cool. We'll be back next week with the Christmas special. We got a lot of shit, and then we'll be back next year. All right, let's call it. Bye, guys.
All right.
Thanks, y'all.